Hello everyone, welcome back to Real Life. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today's episode is another look back at Vancouver, this time in 1962 to 64, captured by Imre Michalik. Imre enjoyed capturing what could be considered mundane footage at the time, ordinary shots around the city, starting with following a cat on its morning rounds. In 1962, Vancouver's waterfront and growing skyline would have seemed amazing if you were a child in the 1920s or 30s. Trawlers and seiners gathered tightly at the docks, fishing nets drying in the sun. Today, hundreds of condo towers crowd together, each one challenging for the best views of the North Shore and Burrard Inlet. Who could have imagined so much traffic cutting through Stanley Park? After all, the Lionsgate Bridge was only completed 24 years earlier in 1938. Before then, people simply visited the park, not rushed through it. Imre took a ferry ride to the island and captured this wonderful misty morning footage along the summit on the Malahat Drive north of Victoria. Looking at it now, it evokes a certain nostalgia, recalling riding in the back seat of the family car, whether a Pontiac, a DeSoto, or perhaps a Chevrolet wagon with vinyl bench seats. The Vancouver Parks Board began acquiring totem poles in the 1920s for a planned replica First Nations village. The initial 4 poles came from Alert Bay on Vancouver Island and were placed at Lumberman's Arch. In 1962, the collection was moved to its current, more accessible location at Brockton Point. 2 of the harbor fuel barges can briefly be seen in the background, Home and Esso. This ordinary footage is in fact quite interesting. Whether it's watching people and traffic downtown, well, you certainly don't see fedoras anymore, or taking in the harbor and all the pleasure craft. The city of Vancouver itself had a population of around 620,000 people in 1960, with the metropolitan area's population estimated at 1.66 million in 1962. The Heron Dinghy is a dinghy designed by Jack Holt of the United Kingdom as the Yachting World car topper. The Heron Dinghy was designed to be built by a home handyman out of marine ply over a timber frame, but can now also be constructed from marine ply using a stitch and glue technique or from fiberglass. These became all the rage in the early 1960s. The Stanley Park Zoo first opened in 1888 and was still a popular destination in 1962, housing over 50 species of animals. It would be another 2 decades before public education changed opinions about zoos. Scenes of animals confined to small cages underscored the controversy of animal cruelty and evokes strong opinions to this day. This wasn't confined only to Vancouver's zoo. Many other municipal zoos in Canada changed to better take care of animals or outright closed. The Stanley Park Zoo closed in December 1997 when its last resident, a polar bear named Tuck, died at age 36. Tuck could very well be in this footage as a young 1-year-old cub. Okanagan Helicopters trialed air taxi service with the Bell 47J Ranger pontoon-equipped helicopter between Vancouver Airport and a floating helipad at the Bayshore Inn. One of the original pilots was Jim Murphy, who later became one of the Bell helicopter sales reps based in Calgary. The shuttle service was unsuccessful, but Okanagan used the heliport to pick up clients in downtown Vancouver doing work on the southern BC coast. For a variety of reasons, fireworks are notoriously challenging to capture, often overexposed. Imre made it look easy. What event was being celebrated, I'm afraid I don't know. Some wonderful nighttime neon sign footage on East Pender. You'll spot the legendary Marco Polo, which was a Chinese supper club and nightclub in Vancouver's Chinatown that operated from 1964 until it was demolished in 1983. A major entertainment venue of the 60s and 70s, it hosted famous acts like Nina Simone, Richard Pryor, Red Fox, The Platters, and Bill Haley and his Comets. In 1953, one of the first Chinese food drive-in restaurants opened in Canada. Henry Chow opened the Ding Ho at 30 East Pender on the site of the former gas station where the Chinese Cultural Center now stands. The name was chosen because Ding Ho in Cantonese is for the best. Chop suey was still popular in Vancouver in the 1960s, but tastes would soon become more sophisticated as traditional dishes were introduced to Canadian palates. A picnic, somewhere perhaps in Stanley Park or along one of the beaches. It's nice to see this early camping stove and the classic Coleman stove at work. These are still very much in use today. The SS Princess Elaine, likely her last sailing before she was withdrawn from service in 1962. She was a steam turbine-powered ship built in 1928 and a later car ferry that operated in British Columbia for the Canadian Pacific Railway, serving the Nanaimo to Vancouver route. The ship was towed to Blaine, Washington in 1963 for conversion into a floating theater and restaurant. In 1977, the vessel was broken up in Seattle, Washington by John Jack Gargan in Lake Union. Possibly the most well-known view of Lions Gate Bridge from the Stanley Park Drive overpass, and a less common view from the sidewalk on the bridge in busy traffic. The Pacific Stage Line's ACF Brill IC-41 bus dates to 1945 and was once a common sight in BC. The Lions Gate Bridge has a long and fascinating history. In brief, the Guinness family needed a bridge to connect Vancouver to their British properties development on the North Shore. So they built the bridge at their cost, and years later sold it to the city for the same price. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Yet another film reel rescued. If you truly appreciate these old reels, consider supporting by becoming a member. Your support is appreciated given the efforts it takes to restore and preserve these vintage films. And if you're looking to rehome old 16mm or 8mm films, especially of anywhere in British Columbia, I'm always interested. Thank you, be kind, and have a great day.